Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for watching. I've got you guys an update on Hurricane Milton. All right, so this is an emergency update. This is very urgent. I don't usually do updates this early, but I just got home from the bus. All right, Hurricane Milton is officially a Category 5 hurricane. All right, with sustained winds at 175 miles per hour. This thing is just a unit out there. I mean, this thing is just continuing to be explosive in that rapid intensification. We have seen unprecedented amounts of rapid intensification. This is now the second fastest storm to reach Category 5 status, going from a Category 1. All right, so I believe it took 18 hours for Milton to reach Category 5 status, just after getting to Cat 1. That is behind Wilma. Wilma being in first place there. But I mean, this is just an incredible system right here. All right, minimum central pressure at around 911 millibars. I did see from a different source, I believe Tropical Tidbits, it's actually at 909 millibars. So it's sub 910 millibar storm, which is just it's very rare. This is easily the strongest one of the year, stronger than Beryl. But I mean, just holy crap, this thing is insane. But you look at where it's moving, and you can see it's only moving at 9 miles per hour. This thing is just moving very, very slowly, and it's sitting just north of just north of Yucatan Peninsula, and it's dangerously close to there. All right, it's moved south of where we originally thought it was going to move. So that's why we're really very closely monitoring its, what it does here. But we should be getting an update, or we actually did just get an update in from the National Hurricane Center, and this is still 175-mile-per-hour storm. So this has not strengthened as far as the past 2 hours or so. But man, this morning and even into early afternoon hours of today, it's just gone absolutely crazy out there. It's been bonkers. All right, but for the rest of the Atlantic, we're not really going to focus on any of that in today's update. But you still have Hurricane Leslie still at 988 millibar low, with maximum sustained winds at around 80 miles per hour out there in the MDR as a Category 1 hurricane. Kirk is now a post-tropical cyclone, still though with hurricane-force winds and a minimum central pressure at around 963 millibars. That's pretty much blazing to our northeast at 30 miles per hour. That is one of the faster hurricanes or tropical cyclones that you'll see. But that's pretty much all we've got in the Atlantic as for right now. All right, so moving on here to the satellite of Hurricane Milton. All right, you can see just it's textbook. I mean, this thing just speaks for its own. It's just absolutely insane to see structure like this. And if you look at this about 6 hours ago, yeah, it had an eye, but it looked nothing like what it's looking like right now. This is a very compact hurricane. It's a very small hurricane. But that definitely does not, affect the strength of it. And right now, it's just absolutely chugging through these waters, it's just exploding. That's all it is. But you can see that this is a pretty broad core that you've got here. So considering that's a small storm, but it's got such a big core here with the really cold and just really rich convection going on here, just is a very good sign that we're going to have a bigger wind field, a healthier system. You can see that eye is just absolutely gorgeous. All right, obviously, really terrible to see this because it's getting a little closer to the Yucatan Peninsula. But man, I mean, that eye is just so well defined. It's really small, but that obviously does not matter here. And you can see just around the center of circulation, the amount of convection that's going on here is just continuous. You're not seeing any break in the convection, so this is going to maintain its strength for a few hours. It's still going to be a Category 5 hurricane as we head into tonight. So if this is going to maintain itself for a little bit longer than we expect, then we'll probably end up seeing maybe near a low-end Cat 4 landfall into Florida. It really all depends on what's happening now. That's what we've said for the past few days, and this is why it's so concerning. This is not really impacting any land yet, other than the outer bands impacting the Yucatan Peninsula. But because it's so strong so early, that just means that the impacts to Florida and just the strength of it are going to be much higher than initially expected, just because even if it weakens out a little bit, it's still going to be a very strong system. But just take a moment to gaze at this amazing and just absolutely incredible structure of this storm here. But this is very concerning to see. But I mean, it just speaks for itself. It's such a textbook hurricane here. But this is what a Category 5 hurricane looks like. All right, so as of right now, you can see we have minimum central pressure around 909 millibars. Then you've got your maximum winds at 150 knots. All right, so just really wild stuff to see there. What about the cone? So as of right now, we're still expecting this to maintain major hurricane strength throughout the entire Gulf of Mexico. You do have hurricane warnings up for the northwestern section of the Yucatan Peninsula here, this coastline. We're expecting hurricane force winds. Those gusts could definitely get over 100 miles per hour. And I do think the wind field from Milton will definitely start to expand just because of how strong it is. It's still going to be a pretty relatively small hurricane, but I think just because of how strong it is, once again, it's probably going to have that wind field getting a little bit larger there. But you can see we also do have tropical storm warnings for the rest of the northern coastline here of the Yucatan Peninsula. You can see that we're expecting this to maintain major hurricane status all the way until landfall here into Florida, and this is when we start to see those hurricane watches. Hurricane watches have been posted for cities like Tampa, Sarasota, and a lot of these communities up and down the western coast of Florida. These are the very populated areas of Florida that are currently under hurricane watches. Now, these are going to be upgraded to hurricane warnings once we see the storm continue to move its way to the east. Once it gets a little bit closer and we have a pretty good idea of where it's really going to make landfall, that's when they're going to upgrade these, make the jump towards hurricane warnings here. So as of right now, you also do have tropical storm watches that are going out for areas towards the Big Bend region of Florida and down towards the Keys. Those could definitely be upgraded to hurricane warnings, just depending on how much the forecast cone changes. I don't think it's going to change a lot, but it's still a pretty relatively big cone. So there are some minor changes that are definitely possible. But right around Tampa Bay is we're expecting that landfall to occur. Right. So to go a little bit more, to dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of where this thing's going to make landfall. So here it is right now, 175 mile per hour, Category 5 Hurricane Milton. All right, it's expected to maintain Category 5 hurricane status until about 8 a.m. tomorrow. So by the time we wake up tomorrow, this is still supposed to be a 160 mile per hour Category 5 hurricane. Now, it seems like we're at its strongest point right now with 175 mile per hour winds. So I do think we're going to be on the downward trend here, and you can see the current forecast right now is for this to get down to 165 mile per hour Category 5 by 8. So we're hoping that it's going to start its weakening trend as it, interacts with some of this land here in the northern coastline of the Bay of Campeche. But this is going to continue to move north and east into the rest of the Gulf of Mexico. And you can see by Tuesday night, we're expecting this to be down to a 155 mile per hour Category 4 hurricane. This is going to be still an extremely dangerous hurricane. Just because it's not Category 5 anymore does not mean that you should take the situation lightly. Treat this as if it is a Category 5 hurricane, because remember, this is still only 2 miles per hour shy of still being Category 5 hurricane. So there's a chance that if this is a Cat 5 by Tuesday, I'm going to say this, if we have a Cat 5 after 2 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, I think we're going to see a Category 4 landfall, just because that if it's able to maintain that much strength, that late, and even if it's going to weaken out as it gets closer to landfall, it's still going to probably be a mid to low end Category 4 if that happens. So what we really got to pay attention to is what it's going to do as it interacts with land here. And as we get into tomorrow night, and then obviously in tomorrow, and then into Wednesday. But you can see this is Tuesday night into Wednesday. Wednesday morning, we still think that this is going to be a Category 4 hurricane, still with 145 mile per hour maximum sustained winds, and that this is when we get to landfall here. Right now, we're expecting a landfall right around St. Petersburg, Clearwater, and Tampa, Florida. Bradenton Beach, Sarasota, all these coastal communities are expected to receive Category 3 hurricane, 125 mile per hour sustained winds here, but really, really intense hurricane here. This is a major hurricane at landfall. But everybody out here, from Spring Hill to Sarasota, needs to be prepared for a possible, eye wall impact. I do think, though, that it's pretty much very likely chance that Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Clearwater and Bradenton Beach are all going to be, hit by that eye and the eye wall. So we're hoping that this is going to weaken out enough to the point where the damage will be limited. But I do think that with the combination of storm surge and just those very high winds, we're going to see some really, really intense impacts. But I believe we might have just gotten an update. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I believe we just got an update from the National Hurricane Center. So this is still 175-mile-per-hour storm. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is expected to be a 185-mile-per-hour Category 5 hurricane. I'm just speechless. Oh my gosh. All right. So they just updated the cone. Saw a little shift there. That was the update. This is expected to strengthen even further by 10 miles per hour. This will be a 185-mile-per-hour Category 5 hurricane. This is insane. And I literally just discussed this, but now it looks like we're probably gonna have a Category 4 landfall. Look at this. By Wednesday morning, middle of the night, Tuesday into Wednesday, we're still expecting this to be at a Category 5 hurricane. So it's almost a guarantee at this point that we're gonna see either a very high end Category 3 hurricane landfall or a low end Category 4. Now that I've seen this, now that I now that I see that they've pushed the Category 5 status to last until Wednesday morning, really convinces me that we're definitely going to see a at least a low end Category 4 impact. But that is just scary to see. So that literally just came in as we were looking at this, but still 125-mile-per-hour Category 3 hurricane at landfall. Still, the area that it's expected to impact hasn't changed. But Longboat Key, Sarasota, Bradenton, St. Petersburg, Tampa, and Clearwater all need to be prepared. And it's not even really preparing at this point. You need to get out. You need to evacuate. So really, I should be saying that areas south of Tampa and north of Tampa should be getting prepared for the system. But if you're in Tampa and you're watching this video, you got to get out now. You're running out of time. Not to scare you, but you got to get out. Tampa, I believe, is under hurricane evacuation immediate. So you just got to get out right now. This is not a storm you want to mess around with, and I really do think that there's a high chance we're going to see this make landfall still as a Category 4 hurricane. All right. So we go over here to the HWRF to take a look at the future cast for the system. Hurricane models have been spot on with this system. GFS has been really bad with keeping up with the intensification with Milton. Now, everyone that's not used to, hurricane forecasting thinks that the models that show the worst case scenarios are always the ones that are completely wrong and way off, have no idea what they're talking about. That's not true. We've now seen this with Helene and with Milton, that the hurricane models come out with the strongest runs but end up being right, and the GFS turns out to actually be the weaker runs and underdoes it. That's because the major models always struggle with the rapid intensification. Whenever you see a hurricane go into rapid intensification like that, all right, the models can't keep up with that. The global models can't keep up with that. The hurricane models did an excellent job with initializing this pretty close to where it was at the point of the run coming out, and they did show very intense deepening, and that's exactly what we see here. HWRF on the 12-0 run, this is the afternoon run, got this almost perfectly. It did bring this down to a 914 millibar low. 912 right here, okay, it was 3 millibars off from the exact pressure that we got here from Milton. So that is an excellent job from the HWRF. This is a very reliable hurricane model, very reliable specifically for this run. But what we see here is this continues as Category 5 hurricane, 926 millibars, still very strong. This is by the time we get into tonight, late tonight or very early tomorrow morning, should be our strongest point. I did not mean to click for sounding. This is right around our strongest point. You can even see that even the hurricane models are going to have some problems with getting the rapid intensification done, but this is when we should see the storm hit Category 5 status with those 185-mile-per-hour winds. I shouldn't say that it's going to hit Category 5 status because obviously it's already getting there, but meaning that it's going to hit it's going to get to those 185-mile-per-hour sustained winds. But I mean, this is just going to continue to move north and east, gearing up for Florida landfall. It's maintaining that eye wall pretty good. You can start to see some of the outer bands getting sheared off by some of the dry air that's trying to get wrapped around the circulation. But you see how you still got a fully intact eye wall here, really dry eye, and you're starting to see obviously those outer bands getting sheared off, but the dry air did not mean to make that big. The dry air that is trying to get wrapped into the circulation of Milton is actually struggling to do that because this eye and this very tight core is actually blocking out that dry air. So that's why it's so important to see what we're looking at now. Just the fact that the core of Milton is so strong and so organized, meaning that it's gonna take a long time for the dry air to be able to finally get itself pulled into the center of circulation with Milton. But this does maintain its Category 5 or high in Category 4, low in Category 5 status all the way to landfall, near landfall, I should say. And then you can see as this is, the core is starting to move over land, it starts so that the millibar starts to go up. This is now a 938 millibar low by 10 p.m. on Wednesday. So this is Wednesday night. All right, this is the same minimum central pressure that Hurricane Helene got down to. So you could argue that this is still a high-end Category 4 hurricane, based off of what Helene was. And then you can see this enters the Big Bend region of Florida. HWRF has been struggling a little bit with location, but this is pretty precise, and it's still a few days out. But it does show this hurricane making landfall just a little bit farther north than the National Hurricane Center. The National Hurricane Center has it making landfall right into here. Okay, the HWRF has it making landfall right into here. So, not a huge difference there, but that can definitely interfere with how strong exactly Milton is going to be at landfall. But there you go. You get landfall right around Thursday morning, which is also a little bit different with the timing. Right, but this is still a 965 millibar low, well into Florida, still bring hurricane force winds easily all the way into Florida, and then it moves itself off the coast, and it's pretty much a fish storm other than that. So, I mean, this is just an absolutely beast of a hurricane. This is probably the craziest hurricane I've ever seen. I've forecasted a lot of hurricanes. I forecasted, I believe, 3 Category 5s at this point. Lee last year, Beryl this year, and now Milton. And Milton has easily been the craziest one of them all. Lee was pretty insane last year. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but Milton has just done something that it's insane. And little did I know that we were going to see even more further intensification. And now the forecast is for this thing to gain another 10 miles per hour and to become a 185 mile per hour Category 5 hurricane. So pretty wild stuff there. But you look at the warnings and advisories. So as of right now for Florida, if you're in the hot pink shade, this bright pink shade, I guess not hot pink, but if you're in this bright pink shade, you are currently under a hurricane watch. All of these will be upgraded to hurricane warnings. So all I gotta say right now is that Sarasota, Tampa, Longboat Key, I believe Longboat Key, Bradenton Beach, Clearwater, everybody out on the west coast of Florida that's currently in this pink shade is under a hurricane watch. Expect these to be upgraded to hurricane warnings probably by tonight or tomorrow morning. But yeah, I mean, that's just going to happen quickly. It goes pretty far inland. You can see that it almost reaches the east coast of Florida, but not quite. So St. Augustine may end up with hurricane force winds. We'll just have to see how far inland these watches push, if they change at all. All right, but you have a lot of counties that are currently under hurricane watches. Tampa currently under evacuation immediates. You can see we also do have tropical storm watches for the Keys up into the Big Bend region of Florida. Everyone in the Big Bend is currently under a tropical storm watch. And then, as of right now, the entire east coast of Florida is under a flood watch. I do think that some of these tropical storm watches and future tropical storm warnings may be pushed farther inland, and we'll obviously look for the same with those hurricane watches. So this is, as of right now, this is subject to change. We'll probably see a few more counties that are going to be added to some of these watches, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy to see this actually unfolding. But we're getting closer and closer to landfall, and the storm is just not done with its strengthening, which is just an unfortunate thing to see. But you look at the flooding with Milton. All right, this is the day 1 to 3 excessive rainfall outlook from the Weather Prediction Center specifically forecasted and created for Hurricane Milton. So as of right now, you have two moderate risk zones, one going from Tampa up to Orlando and into Jacksonville. So that's a pretty big area here of the Florida peninsula all the way up into northern Florida, and you can see all the way up to extreme southeastern Georgia and the areas up and around Jacksonville. All right, that's at least a 40% chance that you're going to encounter flooded roads within 25 miles of a given location. So, very, scary day for flooding. I do think that we're probably going to see a high risk for flooding emerge somewhere in this area. I do think the rainfall is going to be relatively low factor within this hurricane. All right, obviously Helene was devastating. I don't think this is going to be anything like Helene, but I do think that the flooding is going to be bad also because of the storm surge. But just for the rainfall, still a ton of rainfall expected, but nothing like what we've seen in the past. You do have another moderate risk zone though going down into southern Florida, including Key West, Miami, and pretty much all of the Keys here. So that's another area with at least a 40% chance of seeing flooded roadways here. And the yellow shade, you have a slight risk. That's at least a 15% chance of seeing flash flooding. And then the green shade, you have a marginal risk. So the rain totals with Milton, all right, as of right now, at best, we're expecting about 6 to 8 inches, pretty much for Tampa Bay and areas point north, so up towards Jacksonville, pretty much in this gold shade here. I'll circle it out. This is where we're expecting the most rain to fall, pretty much just north of where the eye and center of circulation is going to move through. But pretty much about 6 to 8 inches is expected. Obviously, that northern portion of the storm is going to be the strongest. So that's where we're going to see the heaviest amounts of rain. Those outer bands, though, are definitely going to bring localized areas of flash flooding. I do think that the flooding is going to be very bad for areas, even in southern Florida, because you're going to get heavy tropical downpours and gusty winds. So, the impacts are still going to be pretty intense down there by Miami and even into Key West. But as of right now, for you guys, it looks like about 2 to 4, maybe a little bit closer to 5, 6 inches at the high end amount. Could change for sure because we're still a few days out. But I will say the rainfall outlook has definitely gone a little bit better. It's started to clear up a little bit, but still some spotty areas here of even 8 to 12 inches just to the south of Jacksonville. Look at this orange shade. So that's what we want to look out for. But yeah, I mean, it definitely looks very concerning still with the rainfall here. And then for the last part of the update, you go over here to our peak storm surge forecast. All right, this has expanded. The area with the highest storm surge expected has expanded here. So from Yankeetown down to Bonita Beach, we're expecting up to 12 feet of storm surge, specifically about 5 to 10 feet in between Yankeetown and the Anclote River. But Tampa Bay, the official forecast for Tampa Bay is 8 to 12 feet of storm surge. All right, that is not 8 to 12 inches. Kind of used to seeing those numbers, but this, we're going above and beyond 8 to 12 feet of storm surge. So that means that if you're on the coastal, if you live on a road that's close enough to the beach to the point where you can see it, all right, the water is gonna get so high that it's gonna be 8 feet to 12 feet. That's pretty much how you gotta put it. So, entire first level of homes are gonna be flooded out. I mean, this is really really bad. This is enough water to completely wash away some communities. But this is just very concerning here. Obviously, with Helene, we saw up to 20 feet of storm surge. This is going to be a little bit lower, but still a very concerning impact with that storm surge because just the way that Milton is moving, because of those really intense winds by the core that are going to be moving through Tampa. It's going to be pushing enough water into Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay is, everything that's just going to happen is pretty much that Tampa Bay is going to be basically filled up with water to the point where the streets are going to be flooded, and that water could get up to 8 to 12 feet at max. But Charlotte Harbor, 5 to 10 feet. Bonita Beach, 4 to 7 feet. And then 2 to 4 feet down towards Flamingo. And then the Keys, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge is expected. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. So, I mean, if you're a weather geek, this is the storm you want to watch. I mean, this is probably the most impressive thing we've seen. Other than tornado season, probably the most impressive thing we've seen all year, as far as what weather geeks like to look at. But also, you just got to remember this is a incredibly dangerous situation, so we got to keep our eyes peeled at whatever happens with Milton's intensification. But hopefully, I'll be able to get you guys an update in by tomorrow. Homework hasn't been too bad this week, for school, so I'm hoping to get as many updates out as I can for you guys. But some of this will definitely change. We'll probably get some new information shortly. But yeah, that's all I got. So thank you for coming to watch. I'll see you guys next video.